Right, you're all set to begin.
Okay, everybody, thank you for coming tonight. Tonight's an important night with our safety presentation, which is always, in my mind, one of the most critical elements of managing any operation. It is. Well, first, we'll start out by me reading the usual request that announcement that this meeting of the Sandy Neck Board is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. Chair is inquiring whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing nobody, we'll move on. We'll do a roll call. We'll start over here.
Maureen Piccioni.
Chris Kelsey.
Beat Sampu.
Rich French.
Chris Clark, Town Council Liaison.
Bill Carey.
Renee King, Recreation Commission Liaison.
Bill Monroe.
Ryan Henry, Natural Resource Officer.
Nina Coleman, Sandy Neck Park Manager. Anne Marie Lupino, Sandy Neck Assistant Park Manager.
And Tom O'Neill. Thanks, everybody. Anybody have any issues with the minutes from January? Any questions or?
I'll move that we accept them as printed. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried, thanks. Minutes are approved for January. Just a quickie from notes from the chair. I think probably a year ago or so, we had a brief discussion about, I guess I would generally call board effectiveness. In other words, we all in agreement, that we're kind of on the right set of, using the right set of the directions for the board, the principles right, some conversations we're having, the things we're focusing on. And since then, we've had a few new members. And I think, it'd probably be appropriate at some point soon. I'll need to send something out as kind of a draft in terms of some ideas. But just to take a look at, our agenda, what we're doing in terms of the agenda. We've talked about, bringing in speakers. I actually have one more or less lined up. So, and trying to make sure that, if we're all going to gather here once a month, we're making the most of our time and giving the town what it needs from us in terms of the board, which is, chartered with giving the town advice on issues related to Sandy Neck. I mean, the project has kind of swallowed us all up for the last year or so, for sure, a couple of years. But that's moving along well at this point, at least as far as I know. And, the life will go on at Sandy Neck. So I'll give you some, an email to kind of trigger some thinking, and maybe we'll do March or April. I'll have to look at the agenda sometime when we have a little time. Just have a discussion about, what we're doing as far as an agenda. We have these three areas that we kind of focused on. Those were not, made up. They came right out of the report that was done by the Woods Hole Group back in 2003. Those three focus areas, economic sustainability, outreach, public use, and conservation. That came right out of that report. Now, I guess the question is that still relevant? Does it still make sense? And if it does, can we do more to bring that to life? We kind of touch on it briefly at each meeting, but it's maybe more life could be brought into those discussions. So I'll do some work on kind of triggering an outline that we could use for the discussions, but probably do it sometime. I'll look at the agendas in the future and see which ones are pretty open, and then we can use that, maybe put a half an hour discussion together. Chris.
Thank you very much, Tom. I should just let you know that the Town Council's ad hoc committee to review effectiveness of committees is going to be having their first meeting. So perhaps you might want to circle back to the charge or the code and make sure that that you're aligned with that, because the council will be reviewing that for all the committees. Make sure
I think the largest, where the most of that remit was set up was in that report, which of course totally changed the way Sandy Neck was managed. It added management staff, it added, took different approaches all through the Sandy Neck operation, and that's where these kind of three strategic areas came from. I assume the town council would still see that as the guiding set of principles, but yeah.
So is it accessible to?
Yeah, I'll send everybody a copy.
Can it be on the Sandy Neck website, webpage?
I don't know if it's on the website or not.
Are we talking about the management plan?
Yeah, the Woods Hole report.
Yes, it's on the website.
Oh, okay. I'll find it
It
there.
was done by the Woods Hole Group, oddly enough, but, it's good reading, I think, I mean, it probably should be something that I should remember when we have a new member, just to give them a copy of it and let them read it, because it really kind of gives a lot of a good background about how we got where we are today, I think. So I will make sure, well, you have copies, so you can go on the website and get a copy, but I will make sure I get an outline out and we'll figure out a time we can have that discussion, okay? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I think also, that management plan was an evolution from when it was the Sandy Neck Governing Board,
Yep.
which was an independent entity that was created at the state of Massachusetts level. So it's pretty significant, the changes that happened. So I think it embodied a lot of that new change. And
I think at one time the board actually ran the beach, didn't they?
oh yeah, they had full authority.
Governing
Yep.
board.
Yeah, they were actually a governing board. Yeah, they could do whatever they wanted. They had a lot of authority. I mean, subject to conservation commissions and stuff like that, but they had a lot of authority.
Well, I think with having read it, I think what they come up with kind of made sense to me, and it's just too big of an operation to kind of have people that are kind of part-time. I'm not a big fan of running things by boards or groups of people. I think you need some focused leadership, and operations, but that's just my personal bias. But so I think they made a good call when they put the management team in place. Okay, so we'll get something together and get it to you, and we'll look forward to a meeting, a good discussion sometime in the next couple of months. Okay. All right, where are we? Okay, correspondence. Okay, staff report.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to first introduce Ryan Henry, who is to my right. He is our new full-time natural resource officer. Ryan comes to us from the Shellfish Department, where you were for how many years?
Since 2022.
2022.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what else you got to tell us about yourself, Ryan?
Well, hi everybody. As you all know, my name is Ryan. I'm very happy to be a natural resource officer on Sandy Neck. I'm a big fisherman. I want to get back into hunting. I'm a big bird photography guy. Really enjoy just being outdoors and just love everything about just nature, and Sandy Neck is now considered my second home. So great to meet all you guys. Really appreciate it.
He doesn't know how true that is.
I'm also from the South, or also from South Jersey, and go Eagles.
Okay with that.
Wait a minute.
Well,
Giants
Ryan.
fan.
So this is your team plus Antonio, and then we have one more position that we're in the process of hiring a permanent part-time. That'll be your for full-time. We call ourselves black shirts. Because we wear the black shirts, and then the seasonals are in gray. So today I'm going to go through our staff report. All 2024 ORV permits have expired. They expired on the 15th of January, so we had that buffer so folks could enjoy through the first of the year. We are very busy selling permits by the program that we have online. Donna is at the gatehouse to help you out. If you call, you're having an issue, we understand technology is frustrating. We are also now and then frustrated with technology. So if you're having an issue, call, email the gatehouse, and we'll get your permit all set up for you. Right?
Just ask, can I interrupt you? The transfer department that we don't have to have stickers any longer. We just drive straight through. We pay the fee, and then it's done electronically somehow. It's really pretty neat, pretty convenient. Is that something that could be extended to another department? To Sandy Neck?
That's a license plate reader, and we are reviewing that right now. That is a very successful application. I don't think we can ever get rid of stickers. I think people need to know that they're allowed out there, and we already have a lot of confusion. My my neighbor said I could go out is one of my favorite things that people tell me all the time, so. So I do think we need to keep up with the stickers, plus they're kind of, people love their stickers, and they have them all lined up. But in terms of a license plate reader, we are investigating that for the future.
Yeah, but Bill, the problem with that is if you're out on the front beach and someone decides to drive out in the front beach, but they only have a sticker for the parking lot, you can't have
You'd have
people
to
out on the beach
differentiate.
with the reader of license plates. Much easier, I think, to see a
So
sticker.
you
It's the
could
same,
probably
same thing
differentiate.
for property stickers. You know, the property stickers are a different shape. Sandwich stickers are a different shape. So it gives the staff the ability to know who the users are that are out there. You know, if he's on the back trail and there's someone with no sticker on the vehicle, you know, is it harassment if he stops them and asks them why they're there? You know, that kind of stuff. So that's a tool for those guys. I wouldn't see that as being, there being any positive to not having a sticker.
It's similar to the RFID, so it's the same thing in terms of logging who's out there, but I don't think we're gonna get rid of the stickers. I think that a lot of people would be unhappy about that. So no campfires right now, folks. May 1st? May 1st is when we head into that. Okay. How come I always struggle with this, you guys?
Just go to
The arrow.
the arrows over
Oh,
there.
yeah, there they
by
are.
the eagle.
Other one. Okay. Ryan, is that your picture? That one?
I think that one's Donna's.
So that's Donna's picture of a snowy owl. They have actually already appeared to have left for the year, but we did have some snowy owls on our beach. We've already posted our job openings for our seasonal employees. So gatehouse supervisor, gate attendant, shorebird monitor, seasonal natural resource officers, and facility maintenance personnel have all been put on our town website. We're in the process of scheduling our 2025 walks and talks as well as our beach cleanups. They'll be posted as well. And notes from the field newsletters was updated for February, and you all are receiving that? Yep.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that was beautiful. The last one you sent with the snowy eagle, had its wings, you know, way out. It was beautiful. Owl, snowy owl. It's okay, Rich, it's okay.
We knew what he meant.
I thought I was witnessing something brand new.
It's a hybrid.
Hybrid, right?
It was big as an eagle.
We're continuing our coastal resiliency outreach. Anne Marie has presented our outreach material in terms of explaining our project, how we got here, what's important about creating resilient infrastructure on Cape Cod. And she presented that to Upper Cape Tech in Bourne. And then we're gonna be going to Cape Cod Community College in March and presenting as well. So quite a bit of outreach that's continuing to move forward.
The RV thing, you may wanna relocate an RV trip. You wanna scratch that.
We might wanna scratch that.
Nina, potentially the Howard Tech as well. That might be another easy outreach. in
Excellent.
Howard.
Yep. Alrighty. We have, this time of year, we have a number of seals visiting our beach. So what to do if you see a seal? I'm gonna turn this over to Anne Marie, because she put this together.
Alright, so if you see a seal, if you're at Sandy Neck, obviously call the gatehouse, provide the location. We'll get our staff out there and take a look at it. If there's no one that can answer at the gatehouse, I also recommend that you call IFA. We have all of the specific organizations specific to what animals you find, specific to seals, call IFA on our website, and report the sighting. They always are looking for the sighting location, the look of the animal, and then if you can get any photos of it. And dependent on that, if they have available staff, they'll come out and take a look at it further if it needs some more assistance than that. Also stay 150 feet away and keep dogs on leash. In general, it's usually a juvenile seal this time of year that you're going to see. They stay for a few days and usually go back in the water. Sometimes they don't, so depending on what it looks like, definitely give the gatehouse a call.
My rule of thumb is if they know you're there, you're too close. So if it's queuing on you, you're too close, you wanna continue to back up. Certainly let us know. Unfortunately, people in this day and age wanna take selfies with animals that they see. They want their dog to meet it. I'm telling you this because this is not unusual. When we have a seal come up, either an adult that maybe needs to rest or a juvenile, in this case is a juvenile harp seal, needs a break, right? Juvenile animals, a lot of them can't make it through that first winter. So these guys need to have a moment to themselves to take a break. We really want to keep them as quiet as possible. When seals are upset, they'll eat sand and then they get impacted, and that will further reduce the possibility of them surviving the event. But seals are supposed to be on the beach. We always get that, oh my God, there's a seal on the beach. Yes, that's where they hang out. All right, and I think there's one more slide. Erosion at Trail 4. So far, the front beach in front of the parking lot is doing okay. We had a little nibble at the toe of the dune, but so far so good. I know there's a lot of storms coming in, sort of one after the other, which seems to be the trend now, right? Late February, March, we start to get that one hit after another. But Trail 4 has been an issue for a number of years now, very low, as you can see, heavy eroded slope. So not only is that going to affect off-roading, particularly in the spring, because it's going to pinch there, right? It also reduces it'll make our plover, our attractive places for plovers to nest, squeezed into the areas that are good. So it's going to sort of make higher density plovers in other areas. Because there's quite a bit of a course here of low. A lot of people love it in this location because it's very soft and very, pretty and a big sand flat, but it's going to possibly be an issue this summer. And I think that is it. Anything to add, Ryan or Anne Marie?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, old business. Let's talk about the conservation of the project first. Any news from you on the, we're still waiting for April filing for the CZM grant? Is that still?
Yeah, CZM comes out in the spring, that is correct. So we're waiting for that. We were also gonna go after the NIFWIF, which is unfortunately federal, so I think that's might have been less likely, although I think we're all sort of kind of struggling to figure out what funding is going on federally right now. But certainly the CZM grant, that's the big one, is a springtime grant.
That's a 2 million limit on that? Max?
2 million limit, yep. And then we have our plans at 100%, and we're in the process of reviewing them for getting the RFP out, our request for proposal. Yep. So that is slated to come out in March, I believe late March. But we're in the process of getting that whittled down to the right language, right? Because it's so many components to the project. Last time I reported that we had site plan review, we had Old Kings Highway approval, and the one other one, the big one, is Natural Heritage Endangered Species. It's called a CMP, a Conservation Management Plan, which is kind of like an HCP. I know it's all confusing, but it's a big plan on how we're going to handle, in this case, the spadefoot toad during construction. And that is just about to get submitted. So things are just marching right along. Feeling really good about what we've accomplished so far this winter.
And this stormwater
stormwater review.
DPW, is that completed?
Yeah, that's in-house, and I think we're close to that.
Well, one question I was gonna ask is, what time would it be appropriate? I'm just thinking ahead to project. Sometime, it's gonna be a very compressed time frame. You're gonna start, pretty much when the summer's over and kind of finish before the summer starts. And it's a compressed time. It's also, critical that on time and on budget is enforced, because if it lags beyond, the completion time, then you're gonna start running into use issues and stuff. Is there a time maybe when the board should just look at that project timing and just think about whether we have any issues of access or use? We talked about it a little bit, I know, at the project meetings. But I don't know if we've had a board discussion on it or not. Just in terms of, how this will go from the public's perspective, I guess, mainly, not just the walking public, but the hunting public, the, bicycling public, the cottage owners.
Yes.
How will this all work?
Yeah, we have put some thought into that, because we need to give some parameters to the in the contract with the construction company. We can't micromanage them. They're gonna have to figure out how to deploy and what to attack. But having said that, I need to have some action plan on access. So, and I presented it at the West Barnstable Civic Association, I don't know, last month, Chris, 21st, and this question came up. And so, right now, we're looking at after Labor Day, the lower lot may be closed. After Columbus Day, the upper lot may be closed. And then after Veterans Day, we may have to close the access to the off-road beach, but we still have access through other means.
So my suggestion, I think, open for discussion, but if you have or could bring in even a rough plan of what that's likely to look like, let us all have a peek at it, just have a chance to discuss it. Give you some additional feedback from this group, and before it's kind of in stone, you can decide the timing on it. It might be helpful for us because then we'd understand better what's going on, but also I think you might get some input here that makes sense for the final plan. So if you're up for that, maybe we could schedule that at your timing, depending on when you're ready.
I would definitely like everybody's feedback. I also think that we're not gonna have as much access as we want for one winter. So, I think
Well,
the public recognizes that, but we are trying to maintain as much as we can. But I do think there's going to be on-the-fly decision-making, because those of us that are at Sandy Neck know, oh, I have this little spot I can tuck vehicles in. We have this other parking lot. We can park on the access trail. So it's going to be a little bit of a day-by-day situation, just to provide as much access as possible. So we certainly can have an overall
I don't want
look
to get
at
in the
it,
weeds because that'll.
but
high level, macro
I
kind of.
really don't want to get in the weeds, because it's going to be a day-by-day
Nor do we.
for us to get through this. Yeah.
I think just a macro view, how it's likely to play out timing-wise, what's going to happen when, just to give us a chance to see that and comment, because if there's anything that we know from our experience, we have different constituents here, so coming at this from different perspectives, cottage owners and scientists and other, group people that represent on the board. So at your leisure, when you're ready, get it on a calendar.
Sure.
Thanks.
I have a question too. At what point do we have the RFPs in so we know what the cost is gonna be? And, being able to compare that to the grant monies with what we know we will have for grants. At what point, when does that happen?
You're really not gonna know until the RFPs are out and they come back.
So the
you get a
RFPs come back at a certain price, we pick
That's
the
what
contract,
moment.
and then we go out looking to solidify and finalize, sign agreements for the grants. Is
Yeah,
that pretty
I'm-
much how?
I'm very familiar how this process works in a corporation, but in the town, it's a lot different because you have lowest bidder issues and other things that come into play. But they're gonna go out, they're gonna be, responded to presumably by contractors, and then we'll have a chance to look at put the whole thing together and see where these components that each of these contractors is bidding on, comes in against the,
We've already secured the money. I've presented that here before.
Okay.
The money has been secured. And
Okay.
I'd be happy to show
It
that
allows
to you.
us to go forward to get,
Yeah.
the grants though, ultimately, right?
Yes, Bill. Yep.
oh, I thought, I didn't know that, yeah, we had the meeting with the town council where they unanimously approved basically gave us the bridge loan from the current grant we have to the project plan amount. So we have the money. I thought you were asking, is it like, what will we do if it turns out the bids come in higher than that? I don't know. But we'll see.
Generally, what they do with that is they do alternates.
Yeah.
So they take pieces off.
Right.
Yeah.
There's different options. You can stage it, you can trim there's lots of things you can do. So.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people overseeing that. I mean, that's not my area of expertise, but there's a really strong team
Yeah.
that's done a lot of these
Yeah, this is-
projects.
this is routine sort of stuff, the guys in the town that are used to this kind of, these big projects. So.
Yep, I'm confident.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that this group, you were talking about the value that this group presents, when you have a major project like this that will impede the availability of the services, a very clear communication plan that we're doing everything we can to keep it open, unanticipated closing, and how are we doing. So I think that that's a great way to use this format to let the general public know that we're doing the due diligence. And, so I think that's gonna be critical once this project gets off and running.
I mean, it's the same principle we used at the beginning of the project, right? You cannot over-communicate these things, you just can't. So I'm not worried about over-communicating. I think, it's the other way I'd be worried. So the more we can talk about it, the more information we get out to people, the more the various constituents understand it, cottage owners, the better the project's gonna go for everybody, so. Any
I
other
think, Nina, I mean, I'm not there as often as many, but I think your communication is really very timely. You say what's going on, the preserving the wildlife, all of those things. It's just gonna be imperative to do that once this project gets off the ground.
Well, we're unfortunately very used to having to over communicate with the public with regard to closures. So we've really developed ways of getting information out to the public because we have off-road beach closures. So we have over the years developed ways of making sure people know that ahead of time so they don't show up with their vehicle full of stuff and kids. So there's a number of different conduits, and I think this town is really, really good with outreach because unfortunately every year there's another outreach conduit and it's impossible to keep up with it, So the older folks are like, why isn't it in the newspaper? I'm like, nobody loves, and then the younger people are like, why isn't it on Twitter? I don't even know what Twitter is, right? So so the communication department does get that out to all those various conduits, but I think that the most useful thing and the thing that most of our patrons are really cued in on is the website and the app. So when they're on the app, they get a notification, and so we'll be using that all the time as we move through this project because, as I said, I mean, I'm not even going to have full control over it. We need to give them the opportunity to do the project. So we have to make some parameters, but mostly they're going to have to do the project. But there's going to be a lot of flip-flopping around, a lot of being pretty creative with how to get as much access as possible. So, like I said, I think this is something that we're really well versed in because any busy July day is like this already. Right? It's already limited. It's just a different type of limited. Yeah.
Is Amber going to remain the project manager for
Yes.
this project?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, anything else on the beach conservation? Economic sustainability. Do we want to mention anything about your conversation with the assistant town manager, or hold that for next meeting?
I can just brief really quickly. I know Tom wrote a letter to the town manager about the sandwich fee, and I had a discussion with the assistant town manager, and I think he's right on when he says that we really need to do the data again. We have data from how many Sandwich residents and how many Barnstable residents use our beach from 2013 or whenever.
Right.
Rich, whenever that
A long
was.
time ago,
Yeah.
yeah.
maybe 2010.
Yeah.
So it's pushing it down the road a little bit till we get some decent data. So we'll have to wait till this summer to get some counts in.
Yeah, which makes sense. 'Cause
Yep.
right now, it's anecdotal, and until we get data, you're never going to get it moving forward. So at least we have an opening anyway, so that's good. Okay, Bill, anything you want to talk about in terms of outreach, public outreach? We talked about, just to maybe mention the Boy Scouts. I'd like to get those Eagle Scouts back.
A couple of things. The two most recent Eagle Scout led service projects that we've had out there with Jack Beat, his crew put in that osprey nest adjacent to the access trail. And then Grayson Hickey did the kiosks all over the place and the signage, which looks great. So their leadership tells me that they would be available to come to the March meeting. If we want to, I can schedule them if you
Absolutely.
invite them to come in and do a little.
If you could let Donna know. So
quick little presentation on that. They probably would have a quick PowerPoint or something, but they are both available from March the 10th.
Okay, good.
Just the other thing, just on the radar, it doesn't really pertain to the board, but those property owners, myself included, that have leases with the town, we're starting the process. It actually, leases are now expired. So we're with Mr. Anthony's office, we're starting the process of either getting the lease extended or renegotiating the lease. So that's a process. A couple of other property owners are visiting tonight, Dana Perry and Tracy Hallett. We're all, actually Tracy's a third generation property owner. Dana and I are second generation property owners. Means we're all kicking sand in each other's faces out there 50, 60 years ago. So that doesn't really pertain to the board, but it is it is a process that's ongoing, and get that back together.
Okay. Renee, one of the things that I was looking back at some of our meetings, one of the things that we were talking about a while ago was trying to improve access to the beach, particularly from parts of the community that are not necessarily always kind of tuned in to going to the beach. I think you've talked about this a little bit, a couple times. Is there anything we should be doing more formally to make this part of our program, or is it just something that's better left informal? Or?
No, I think what Nina's doing at Hyannis West is a great start. It really is starting with the youth reading about nature and learning and exploring it. I love the fact that as they get ready to come out of that elementary school, 3rd grade, they actually physically have a field trip that they actually get to go. With those young children going, they're bringing that information back to their parents and maybe using the Hyannis West model as a way to facilitate with the other elementary schools. So maybe this year it's just that 3rd grade, but every 3rd grade. I think this community is so great. So you think of our ice skating rink. We have so many kids that still don't know how to ice skate, but we have that facility. So every kid ice skates. I think the same thing with the natural resources that we have. Start off with one school and spread it to all. If you start off with the kids, then you kind of have built the catalyst. You bring the kids, you bring their siblings, you bring their parents. And so I think that that's a really good start. We're going to have a few events coming up at the HYCC. So as the HYCC offers their recreational programs, there's no reason why some of the Sandy Neck programs can't be integrated right with that. So I think that's those are the kind of things that are helping. And I think this Hyannis West project with the grant that was given is a really great start.
So is that something that you'd be prepared to kind of just take the board responsibility for just kind of keeping
I
us
will. I mean, I'm
advised
going to
on?
be actively involved
Yeah,
with Nina.
but I'd like to just keep it alive for the board
Yeah, we'll
too.
do that. And I think the other thing we were talking about, which is so great with the Sturges and the house, and I mean, I don't think people know about that. So if we can put that into a story, maybe use Cape Media. I think the stories and a little bit of social media is all that it takes. And I just think people need to know in those formats.
So let's just keep that as an active topic and when we talk about public outreach, because I think that's really a key for us to get more people that maybe aren't typically either aware or predisposed. I'm not sure what the right word is, but just they're not that aware of what's going on out there and need maybe a bit of a push, a bit more education, and a bit more help to take advantage of. It's an amazing place.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? And so was that possible because of the grant though? Okay. And is that grant like a one-time thing, or are there other avenues for different grants for the other schools, or is that like
So the
kind of a-
MVP grant has quite a bit of outreach that I've been reporting. We're doing High West this year, and then next year we're gonna do High West and the Innovation School, which is also in the environmental justice community. So those are the turtle curriculum, and then all third graders from both of those schools next year will be coming for a field trip. So we're creating curriculum. We're doing the survey to determine what are the barriers to going to any beach, right? So the survey is really interesting. It asks a lot of questions about, do you not know where they are? Do you need, it would be better if it was in transportation, or is it a language barrier? Like, what is it? Because we've noticed, and teachers keep reporting, that very, very few children in any of our schools, the little people are not going to the beach. They're not getting out in the nature. So so we did, focus on those two schools, but it's actually piggybacked with some of the other programs that I run, and so now we're doing outreach for shellfishing in some of these schools as well, because I don't think that these kids are learning how to shellfish. I don't think many kids are learning how to shellfish. So it really, the MVP grant sort of forced our hand, and then correlated with Renee coming on this board, who has this mission, but it has kept this like snowballing at this point, and it's been really really fun to watch the program develop.
And I think the other thing that if we reach, because I talked about reaching out to the young people, but I also think reaching out to the parents. So the parents are looking for opportunities to get their amazing children unplugged. Just leave the cell phone home for a bit. And so one group that I didn't even think of, Nina, is the Town of Barnstable Youth Commissioners. They're getting ready to have their probably 6th or 7th job fair for young people looking for jobs, and that is a program that was built and designed and executed by young people. So that is probably, I didn't even think about them as a group, to get them exposed to it so that they can get it out to their community. So the teenagers in the youth commission and the parents, I think the parents are looking for opportunities to take their children off the technology and into some of these things we're talking about that are getting lost.
Does the job fair connect with your openings? I assume they're looking at Barnstable openings in this job.
There are many vendors, so anyone who has a job opportunity for a 14 to a 17-year-old
Okay, so
gets to and get the word out. I think it's I'll look to find the date and get that communicated. I think it's March.
We generally
You have to
don't
go
do
with
that
Friday.
one.
You can check for me. It's March the 5th. And it's a great fair, and it just, if you even get a chance just to go and visit it, to see what our young people are doing, they lead it, they do everything. It's the Barnstable Youth Commissioners.
I just think at a headline level, here we are in a resort area. Excuse me, my voice is going, but tourists coming and going, they're all going to the beach. Meantime, we got people living here, and particularly young people. That's when you have to kind of print on people when they're young, you know, who may be going to school every day here and they don't go to the beach. I mean, it almost seems insane. But, you know, so you say, well, why is that? What's inhibiting them, or what's preventing it, or is it just knowledge? Is it educate? I don't know. But it's something I think that, it's not a Sandy Neck board issue particularly. It's really a town, part of the whole education of the schools, and maybe the rec commission kind of pushing from behind on that. But it just seems like we should be doing more in that respect.
And so I'm just gonna make a public announcement, and I don't know if you have summer openings that can address the ages of 14 to 17.
Probably not.
But this Wednesday, March the 5th on a Wednesday, from 2:30 to 4:30 at the Hyannis Youth Community Center, they're gonna have a full-blown job fair, and all the participants there are providing jobs for students, but it might be an opportunity for the rec and the Sandy Neck just to have some information about the services that are offered. But it's a great event. I think it's in their 8th year.
Okay, well, something I'll ask you to kind of keep us,
Do my best.
this part of our discussion, because I think it's really critical.
I have a question on
Yes, sir.
on the Junior Ranger program. What age group is that?
It's 9 to 12.
9 to 12, okay. And how many students do you have in that?
Typically 15.
Okay. I was just wondering if you could add on to that, build that into a
How many
bigger
of them are
program.
local kids versus,
They typically are local.
are they typically local?
Typically local, and they usually come back every
Okay,
year.
good.
Depending
So
on.
something like that, when we're talking about having a guest here, just having them talk, I think when people who've experienced the program talk to the general public about the program, that might be what you were looking for.
Any other comments under the three headings before we move on? Okay, so we'll turn this over now to Anne Marie to talk about the safety presentation, and as I said earlier, very important, so.
So I'll be giving this year's update for the Sandy Neck Safety Solutions for 2024. I'd like to start with this, kind of show the difference of how the beach can change over a season. This was the handicap ramp right when they put it in, and that was the handicap ramp in September right before it got removed. It actually got dug in about 3 feet, and we hand dug, took it out for the storm, got hit with another high tide, and luckily they were able to get it out after that. Okay, moving into our OV permits and camper nights for this season. You can see for 2024 in the red, the overall total for permits sold was 4,541. Camper nights was 3,362. They both are within the same trend amounts as it's been historically since around 2020, give or take. Especially for the permits, we're seeing it's kind of plateauing. There was an increase in 2022, but it's really just sitting around that 4,500 range altogether. Variations between the Barnstable and non-residents every year, but it's still coming around that 4,500 mark, kind of for our max amount. In total, we had a 8.55% increase in permit sales from 2023 to 2024, and then a 1.05 increase for camper nights from 2023 to 2024.
May I ask a question, please? Sorry. Is that 8.55 increase in dollars or in people?
That's the overall permits sold.
Number of permits.
Yeah. So this is the overall summary for aggressive behavior from 2014 to 2024. So you can see in total we had 4 aggressive instances, 2 involving behavior towards staff and 2 involving patrons. We had one domestic on the property. We had 7 police responses overall for the entire summer, and then we had one incident where it resulted in a protective custody from the beach. So kind of to go into a few of the different overall issues that arose at the beach over the summer. So in June, on the 17th, there was a patron. This was involving a staff member. So a patron accessed the Sandy Neck ORV beach without airing down to 18 PSI while being addressed by staff about the violation. The patron became very aggressive and abusive, using a lot of vulgar language to the point where they were asked to leave for the day, and it had to be escalated further. They were not asked back, and their permit ability was revoked. This situation was kind of one of those that was out of the ordinary because they were there as a patron with a friend, so it wasn't their permit. But they had a permit historically, so they were uneligible for the future in the next year to get a new one. Another situation that we had in June of this year, there was a
Can you just stop
driver.
me there, make sure I'm not confused?
Yep.
Is their vehicle, that their vehicle didn't have a sticker?
So the vehicle itself had a sticker, but the person that was being aggressive and abusive to staff
Was a passenger?
was a passenger.
Okay.
So it is within the, you are responsible for your passengers. But in that situation, the person who owned the vehicle was being very compliant, understood what was going on, was apologetic, where the person causing the issue was not and had historically had a permit. So to prevent them from going out and getting their own
Right.
and causing more of an issue, we dealt with it that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
Also in June, we had a report to the gatehouse of a verbal dispute at the ORV air station as the patron was leaving. It was called in after the fact, but it was observed on camera that there was an altercation between 2 patrons about the way a car was oriented, and there was some verbiage that, had it been found in the moment, probably would have escalated to the police being called and involved. But because it was hearsay, we had to deal with it after the fact, and they were talked to accordingly afterwards. In July, we had another staff incident with on the ORV beach. There was someone out there without a ORV sticker affixed to their windshield. To resolve the issue, a natural resource officer asked the patron to return to the gatehouse to get a permit, and they failed to comply and displayed inappropriate and aggressive behavior towards staff. This was with several of our seasonal staff that have been at the beach for several years and know how to handle those situations, and they still weren't able to de-escalate it. So, it was at the discretion of staff on duty and the full-time staff on for that day that the person leave for the day, and the situation was escalated from there. In August, we also had another issue where staff was involved with aggressive behavior towards staff. So an individual was spotted running in the dunes, avoiding interactions with staff after being asked if they needed help for various reasons. And from there, they ran into the water and avoided complying once police and rescue personnel were on scene and involved, trying to make sure that they were in a safe environment for themselves. So this is a incident trends from 2014 to 2024 for violent and volatile incidences. So aggressive behavior involved with violent acts. So for 2024, there was 5 in total assaults. We didn't have any. We haven't had any since 2021. And for police responses, again, this year we've had 7. I contribute the police responses to staff being proactive about calling the police in situations before they arise, or just so they're already on scene for if they're needed for assistance. Assaults, we've been able to keep that 0 for multiple reasons. We definitely take in account, especially in July and on busy weekends, if we're closed down for piping plovers or anything like that, that we're taking into account the amount of people that are on the beach and how close they are together. We try to get as many people out there to enjoy their time, but at the same time, we're very cautious to how many people we're putting on top of each other from a safety perspective. Especially on the 4th of July this year, we made sure that the ORV beach was closed at a good amount of people prior to it being filled up to the point where if there was an incident, there was a good ability for people to personnel to respond when needed quickly.
Can I ask you a question? If you have an incident occurring, how long, on average, I guess you have to say, does it take to get a police officer, somebody there on site?
Do you want to talk to it?
Sure.
Okay.
Depends on where the sector car is.
Whether it's down the beach or
Well,
at the
so
parking?
the way that we work is we have a sector which is Barnstable, West Barnstable. That sector car could be at the Burger King, or they could be at the town line in Sandwich. So obviously, if they're at the town line in Sandwich, they're gonna be there within a couple of minutes. If they're at the Burger King, they're gonna be there probably 7, 8 minutes if they're going lights and siren. If it's a call that's not something that we need to respond in that manner, then it's probably 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
If it's on a weekend, when we have a police detail on the beach, it's almost immediately. So it just really depends on where the assets are.
Yeah.
So that was the question, that on peak weekends, there's detail physically there.
Every weekend during the busy season.
From roughly what time till what time?
Depending on the day. Saturday, it'll be 8 in the morning until closing. And then Sunday, we sort of did a hybrid, right? We started a little bit later, but we stayed a little bit later so that,
Around 10 to 6.
yeah, so 10 to 6 on
And that's a
Sundays.
cruiser or that's a 4x4s or a combination thereof?
The police officer who's assigned out there has the ability to use either the 4x4 that we have out there. Right now, it's a pickup truck. Or we can use the ATVs that we have out there. We have our own ATVs out there so that we're not using the Sandy Neck resources when they need them.
Moving into the verbal warnings that we gave out this year for 2024, I kind of highlighted in green the higher amounts of verbal warnings that we gave out and what it was for. I like looking at this because it gives a few different kind of statistic things when you look at it, for myself at least. So we're looking at permit not affixed is the most highly anticipated verbal warning that we gave out for this year. That being said, I think this category has arisen just because the structure of how when someone gets a permit, they're getting it through the mail typically before season. So when they get to the gatehouse, they do have that interaction of it needs to go on before you get out there, but we're not doing the vehicle checks for equipment right on the spot every time someone comes through. So typically when that used to happen, they put the sticker right on. So we're finding that increase. To combat that, we're kind of looking at finding a standardized way if you do find someone out there without the sticker, addressing it in a specific way every time. So say your permit's not on there, you were advised it needed to be on there, it's in the rules and regulations, we may have to ask you to leave for the day, something like that. So we're looking at ideas of how to kind of combat that, and maybe it's as simple as, okay, your permit's not fixed, we're gonna do an equipment check now. If they don't have their equipment, then they need to leave for the day. So kind of combating and seeing what we can do with that information.
So this is not 100 people that have no sticker. These are a good
Yep.
portion of these are people that applied for their sticker and just hadn't gotten it yet, but still go out, or?
So they've applied, they've received their sticker, but it's not physically on their vehicle. So they're going out there and there's no indicator that they have a permit, so we have to
So they're sharing the
flag them
permit
down.
possibly.
So not specifically, typically it is someone who just needs to put it on their windshield, but they get stopped at the gatehouse and say that needs to be put on your windshield before you get out there. They get out there and then they just never put it on. Typically they want to scrape the old one off,
If it was
clean their
10 people,
windshield
I'd
and
buy
put it
that,
on.
but if it's 100 people, I'm
So I
doubtful of I forgot to put it on my windshield.
So
They
stop.
we check the permit, so we check the permit number, cause we have to put it in our system to the person's account, and I think out of the 99 that are on there, there was like 3 that may have been the wrong vehicle, and it's typically a family member also bought a vehicle,
Right.
and it went to the same address, and they had the wrong ones.
So when your RFP picks up the vehicle going through with a sticker, it doesn't tell you what car it is, you just pick up a sticker, right? So it could be any car?
No, it tells you,
It
it
tells
tells
you.
you the information.
Okay, so you
yeah.
have you
Yeah.
can trace that back then.
The sticker is specific to the vehicle that you
Yeah.
fill out the permit for.
Yeah, that is, but
Right, so
if you're
We
moving
can
your
check
sticker
any
around.
sticker number, any one of us can get on our phone and look at the sticker in front of us, and if it matches the
Yeah.
license plate.
And that amount, the 99, like once we find it, the person puts their sticker on right then and there, and if not, they're leaving for the day. So we usually get compliance with someone just putting it on right in front of us.
Okay.
Other ones that I can see right off the bat, like dogs off leash, we had 42 this year. That's in the typical range. I do think it's also a good reminder for us as staff members for training opportunities and just making sure that as we train our seasonal staff, kind of knowing the importance of specific regulations to enforce, like tire pressure. We usually have upwards of 20. This year we only had 6. And that's probably just the knowing of when you're looking at someone's tires, does it look like they've aired down or not, and how should I address it moving forward? One I do want to note is permits required. It looks like we haven't been enforcing it for verbal warnings, but we've just been dealing with it in a different way. Overall, for this entirety of the year, we had 340 verbal warnings, which is the same as 2022. And I think as we go in and look at standardizing some of the ways we talk to patrons about specific regulations, we'll be able to increase that number for a good reason, not just to be hounding people about anything.
What's the fire violation?
Fire violations, that's specific to if you're having a fire in a in a restricted area, like you can't have it on bodfish specifically, you have to have it in the designated fire area, so someone could get a warning for that, or if they start their fire before sunset or 7 o'clock, whichever comes first.
Anne-Marie, before you go forward, what's riding on rails?
Riding on rails is, say, if you are in the bed of a truck and you're sitting on the outer edge,
Got it.
you have to be physically
Inside,
inside the
got it,
bed.
thank you.
Yep.
And that would include sitting on a tailgate?
Sitting on a tailgate is included in that, yes. So I just kind of, how I talked about ORV permits, we went down in the verbal warnings category for that as we talk about the citations that we issued each year. This amount went up this year for the ORV permits required. It was 10 last year and it was 16 this year. And that was because we kind of standardized looking at it. We give people the leeway. So January 15th is when permits expire. If you haven't gotten a new permit, so if you had an expired permit and you were found out on the ORV before April 1st, you would get a verbal warning. You'd be asked to leave for the day. You can go apply for your permit. After April, we standardized that if you were found out there without a permit, you would be getting a citation for it. If you did go purchase a permit at the gatehouse, you could appeal it in court if you wanted to. That's just how we standardized that to get more compliance with it. And for the people that were found out there without a required permit, we only had one incidence where there was several citations having to be issued again this year. So everyone kind of got the idea of, because they got a citation for it, they didn't have any reoccurring issues with violations. Overall, we gave out 39 citations this year. Temporary suspensions, that was 5, so that is like a ban for 24 hours. So it wasn't something that a staff member felt was a reason to give a citation, and we do ask them to leave for 24 hours as their repercussion instead. We had 4 times as many written warnings this year, and that usually arose from seasonal staff bringing situations up after the fact that they felt they didn't want to give out a citation in the moment, and they didn't feel as though it was required one. But when full-time staff members were instructed on what happened, it was warranted that at least a written warning was warranted for them to understand why we had to address something and not to do it in the future.
So that's a question, I don't think I realized that seasonal staff could give, what's the limits of the seasonal staff kind of power in this area?
They can write citations.
They can write citations.
Yeah, up to $300, because then it goes criminal. But yeah, they all write a few citations. Obviously, the full-timers are more likely to do the vast majority of the enforcement. And certainly during our training with our seasonal staff, they're trained to elevate things to a supervisor. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We had 2 permits revoked this year, one for continual speed violations, which ended up being turned into a no trespass through the police department for non-compliance with not visiting the property. We also had a permit revoked for the aggressive and abusive behavior towards a staff member. And then we had 1 other trespass for the safety of personnel due to a situation that arose over the summer. So for 2024, the yearly citations overview, there is still a decreasing trend on citations given out over from 2014 to 2024. We saw a small uptick in 2024 from 2023, and I think that number will kind of continue in a increased position just as we standardize across the board how we want to handle some situations. It is obviously unique when you are on the beach. You do have to handle things in the moment for how you feel and for how the patron is reacting to the education you're giving them on top of what went wrong in this scenario or what happened while you were trying to enforce our regulations. But standardizing it a little more, I think, will give all staff members, full-time and seasonals, an idea of like a baseline where to go with their enforcement in certain situations that we see typically. For our EMS responses from 2017 to 2024, we've seen a slight increase this year specifically though for 2024. We had less responses than 2023. So this year our rescue responses included the following. We had a priority to medical in June at the cottage colony. The individual was able to be taken by boat. Sandy Neck staff was able to assist with transporting them from their cottage to the shoreline, and then they were taken with Barnstable Fire Department to the hospital. On July 3rd, we had a torn ACL on the tidal flats, and they were able to be transported by our staff to the gatehouse and was taken to the hospital by West Barnstable Fire Department. On July 4th, we had a mental health emergency that arose at curfew. There was a phone call placed for someone's well-being. Our staff and the Barnstable Police Department were able to find the patron, assist with their well-being until West Barnstable Fire Department was able to get there and transport them to the hospital. In August, on the 14th, we had a patron fall backwards on the handicap ramp in one of the walkers we have. They were not using it properly, and they hit their head. We were able to stay on scene with them, give them an ice pack until West Barnstable Fire arrived, and when the fire department came, they checked the individual out, and there was a, they didn't want to be transported to the hospital, so they signed a refusal. In August, on the 24th, we had 2 incidences. We had a mental health emergency. They were taken to the hospital by West Barnstable Fire Department. And we also had a weak and disorderly patron at the gatehouse who was able to be brought to the hospital by West Barnstable Fire Department. And then again, on the 31st, we had a diabetic emergency on the front beach. Due to the patrons' inability to walk, we had West Barnstable Fire Department meet us on the beach, and they transported them via one of our vehicles back to the gatehouse for transport, actually the air station. So we were able to work with West Barnstable Fire Department in that scenario. For all of these different events that we had at the beach this year, so of the 7, 5 of them were staff discovered. It was not that they were called into the gatehouse. Staff was in the right place at the right time, and as these situations arose, they were able to assist right then and there on the spot. So it really showed that staff was doing their due diligence of being in the field and being at all different places on the property at the right times, and we're patrolling consistently throughout the summer. Collaborations with other agencies. We obviously work very closely with the Barnstable Police Department. We have our liaison officer, Chris Kelsey. They partake in summer police detail shifts, along with they also do some training with our seasonal staff beginning of the season for how to de-escalate situations. We work with West Barnstable Fire Department for year-round fire and medical responses. We also do trainings with them for safety and CPR, firefighting, and in-person drills. We also work with Harbor Master. They support us when we have instances on the water. They also help us with jet ski training for new staff. We've worked with NECWA a lot more closely for pit tagging with our Diamondback terrapins. That was the photo on the top, is how staff was learning how to pit tag turtles that we were putting back in the marsh. We have also continued to work with IFA and marine mammal strandings, and we have a good working relationship with them. All of our staff and a few of our departments with the natural resources just did a tour of their facility to understand more about their program and what they're able to actually help with, which was really interesting. And one I didn't put up here, and I'm so sorry I didn't, Barnstable Fire Department. We did a lot of, they do a lot of work with us. They respond to all of our calls out at the cottage colony. And they did a drill this year on June 10th with a few of our staff members, along with a lot of different agencies. Barnstable Police Department, Sandwich Fire, Barnstable Harbor Master, the Sheriff's Department. They were all did a multi-agency drill out at the cottage colony to respond if there was an emergency out there. You want to add anything?
No.
Okay. But I do apologize for not being on the slide. We definitely really respect you guys and love that you help when needed. We also have a lot of community outreach in topics of public safety, EMS equipment, beach grass restoration, ecology, and fieldwork for diamondback, terrapins, and shorebird nesting. We have our junior ranger program every year. We have Barnstable High School art club come out every year at the halfway house and learn about the ecology and the importance of Sandy Neck, and a little bit about what we do as natural resource officers on the property. And we also had a lot of students from Upper Cape Chat come out for dune restoration work in our parking lot as we get closer to the relocation project. For 2024 solutions that we implemented for staff, so the changes were I was promoted to Sandy Neck Assistant Park Manager. Ryan was designated as the Natural Resource Officer of Sandy Neck full-time, where we participated this year in the 2024 Barnstable High School internship program. We have Nick, who's pictured in the top, with us this year, and he's been a great member of our team, and he's hoping to stay on through the summer, which is awesome. We also have full-time and seasonal Sandy Neck staff. We completed rescue training for the jet ski, and we were able to kind of change the trajectory of what that program is going to look like for the future. But for 2024, we were able to implement a swim test for staff to help as second rescuers. We had lifeguards all summer, which was a big help in doing some training opportunity with the jet ski, along with we did a matrix schedule for full-time staff. Depending on the wind, the tide, and what trailer it was on, we had to work all together to make it functionable from dawn to dusk every day. So that was our big push for the entirety of this past summer. And we will get into
What's in the
summer.
bottom picture there?
That is Ryan doing some rusty willow invasive species work. We do that within our wetland systems at Sandy Neck.
Good.
For vehicles, a Polaris UTV was purchased to act as a new patrol vehicle. So we're outsourcing it. We're putting on lights and radios this winter, and it will be on the beach for this upcoming summer. AEDs have been added across the entire fleet for Sandy Neck patrol vehicles. So this vehicle is going to have a new one. We also implemented a AED box on the Bodfish Public Beach. So there's a box now that has an alarm if someone opens it, but it's always there accessible from dawn to dusk for any person to use that can get the key. We were able to implement that. All fleet vehicles were equipped with standardized citation binders. We were finding that a lot of our staff, we used to give out each person had their own set of everything for when they needed to write citations. We were able to standardize across our 3 UTVs and 2 trucks that each now has a specific binder with citation books and a lot of our regulation information to be able to kind of have everything in one place so not everyone has to remember their backpack and we all have access to everything we need at once. Patrol vehicles have been outfitted with green and white lights for emergency response and rescue scenarios at Sandy Neck. For patrols, we did hourly patrols on Bodfish Public Beach and all parking lots, which helped a lot with some of those rescue scenarios that I had been talking about. A lot of them did come up in those areas and we were able to help consistently. We did monthly jet ski response personnel matrix schedules, which worked out really well for especially when people had their days off or there was one person out. We were able to follow that schedule as much as we could to make sure that the jet ski was in service as much as possible. One thing that we really honed in on this year was doing periodic emergency response scenario drills. So on Fridays, we usually do a staff meeting for all field staff, natural resource officers, and full-time staff. And sometimes impromptu, we would, instead of doing our staff meeting, we would have the gatehouse run a scenario. Obviously, this is a drill, but we'd have staff kind of switch gears and be able to respond from the gatehouse, and it really helped with team building on top of just getting them to understand early season the importance of when something comes over the radio, how to respond to it in a timely manner and what to say in those scenarios over the radio and be in communication with the gatehouse at all times. We also added some informational signs at the access trail for languages for Spanish and Portuguese, and we listed out some of the regulations that we were finding that were hard to correlate when needed in those languages. It actually helped a lot. We significantly reduced the amount of situations we had for the specific regulations that we added to the sign. For traffic solutions, we maintained pedestrian walkways from the parking lot to the public beach. We kept pedestrian walking paths on pavement, clear of sand and vegetation as much as possible. We implemented a 15-minute tow truck policy at the access trail for stuck vehicles, which worked out really well. There's nothing like sitting on the access trail for 2.5 hours on a busy Saturday afternoon. And it just helped with the quality of the access trail itself, on top of kind of standardizing what to do in those situations of, you know, if someone's really stuck, are we going to be able to get them out in a timely manner? Because there's nothing like having someone stuck on the access trail and then a camper trying to go up the left side and getting stuck, and now you have no access to the beach at all. So it is definitely a safety hazard.
I think that's a great idea. How are you communicating that to people? Is that this was news to me. I hadn't seen that before. I think it's a great idea, but how are you communicating it to? It's mainly campers, isn't it, that get stuck? I mean, a percentage is mostly campers, or?
It does vary. I can get, we try to track when people get stuck, so I don't specifically know if it's campers, but I can get that to you guys. Where we kind of let people, they know it's their responsibility to get unstuck in a timely manner. Typically the people who the 15-minute rule really applies to are people who don't have a permit at all and don't know what they're doing. Right. So unless they can flag someone down and have them pull them out, then we do end up being like, we're gonna go the route of a tow truck. And we typically, if a tow truck's called because they are having to deal with a tow truck company, we kind of hand it off to them and we take ourselves out of it at that point once they get there.
Okay.
So Anne Marie, that means that you've got 15 minutes to get unstuck, otherwise you're calling the tow truck. Got it.
Yep. If it's a slower day and it's someone, like say we've known this person's had a permit for 8 years and we can help a little more, we're not gonna, you know, go and ruin their entire day, but we do have the limits that we have to, especially on the busy weekends. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Or the Honda Civic or something like that.
Yeah. We also,
Old four-door sedans.
we found that we were still having a lot of backup issues at the air station on busy evenings, especially Sunday afternoon. People are still trying to come on, people are going off, people aren't also trying to air down. So we added 2 additional compressors at the gatehouse garage, which helped with the influx of people. So if we didn't have enough at the air station, we would send people down. We'd have a staff member there with the radio say, oh, there's a Jeep coming up, they're gonna air down, to kind of combat the buildup that we get at the access trail.
The new alignment around the, once the project's done, around the air up here is gonna be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's gonna really be a big help.
Yeah. And then we also added a pedestrian crossing sign at the second bumped elevated area on the pathway. That was for a couple different reasons, specifically for speed. We were finding a lot of people flying up and down the road, and then patrons having to complain or us seeing it ourselves and having to try to address it. Once we put that in, it really did slow people down and we didn't have as many issues with that. This year we had our multi-agency response drill with West Barnstable Fire Department. There was an unconscious patron off in the water at Sandy Neck ORV corridor. It was discovered in the area of Trail 1. That was the overall scenario. This was a very large multi-agency response drill in comparison to previous years. There was Sandy Neck staff, West Barnstable Fire Department, Barnstable Fire Department, Barnstable Police, DCR, Harbor Master, and the Sheriff's Department. There was a lot of different agencies involved, and all of them were doing their communications from a centered trailer that was brought in on site. The drill itself was very informational and exciting for the fire department and the police department aspect. For Sandy Neck, we had a few outcomes from that. One was jet ski training. That's why we were able to do a lot with our program this year with building it up. We learned a lot from this drill and the components that can come with a jet ski response. Me and myself and Chris Kelly were out on the jet ski. It was an outgoing tide, and we found that there are some limitations on when that tide is going out and it's getting dark. If you're out there on the jet ski, you do need some support from Harbor Master, which we're able to get. We did find out though that the jet ski and the response of getting someone out of the water, it is successful in using it. Which was a really good outcome to see. We did identify limitations with communications between all agencies, and I guess just coming from that, the outcome we had for our seasonal staff is what we always used this drill for, was to train them if there was a rescue scenario to happen at the beach, was because it was such a big drill. The small portion that they needed from it, I think that they had a hard time understanding. It was a really good drill for the fire departments. I think for Sandy Neck specific, with training our seasonal staff, we discovered that it wasn't something that was going to benefit them. But a drill like this, say we do it sometime in September off season with our full-time staff members who have a little more background in response efforts, it would be great for them to be incorporated in. But for our seasonal staff, it wasn't conclusive for them to learn from. But it was a great introduction on hands-on emergency situations for a lot of our staff.
So are you suggesting a scaled down version?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, it's a timing thing. It's just really a hard time of year because of all the endangered species. So everything is very challenging. It was a lot of agencies. Communication is always a challenge with that many agencies. So I think it was a really positive drill. I think what Anne Marie is saying is it's better in September, and then do a smaller hands-on drill that's more specific to our seasonal staff in June.
In the June time.
Yeah. So that's one of the outcomes.
So in the 2024 season overall, we were able to develop an outpost area and response protocols for all tidal conditions for the jet ski. The beach obviously changes year to year dependent on the different types of storms we get, and we discovered from the first summer we had the jet ski to last summer, we had a lot of obstacles with the tide at an in-between tide, so we would have to make sure what trailer. So we have a metal just boat trailer that we have for the jet ski, and we also have a manual trailer that has like tires for a beach wheelchair. That manual you can push into the water, which you have to use at a lower tide because you can't back the boat trailer in with a truck if it's too far out. So we're able to make that a reality at the beach and use the equipment effectively. We replaced decking board infrastructure at the bathhouse in the pergola area. Some of the joists had broken and we repaired them before last summer. We reestablished Sandy Neck lifeguards for last summer. Depending on what the recreation department has for staffing this year, we're hoping to have them again. We established the presence of an alarmed AED box on the public beach. And then we also it's an in-house policy for offshore wind for Sandy Neck floaties, 17 miles an hour for wind, offshore, or when Sandy Neck or Harbor Master Shop feels conditions warrant it, we put no floaty days into effect, just as a safety precaution for people and their children. That policy kind of is a broad topic of, floaties themselves and paddle boards and inflatable paddle boards.
17 miles per hour over the water is actually pretty gusty. That's
Yeah.
pretty strong.
Yeah,
Especially with an outgoing tide.
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah, there was one day early season last year. There was no one on the float, but I went out on the jet ski to retrieve it. You don't really even want to be out there on the jet ski, so. But in a rescue scenario, the jet ski would have been warranted, and it would have been a useful tool. Maybe just not for a float.
When will you know where you stand with this year's lifeguards?
I don't think we're gonna know for a while.
Like June or?
I really can't say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you get full staff.
Oh, I do too.
For the 2025 season, we are going to be implementing an additional speed radar sign to place on the ORV corridor, kind of like the one that we have at Trail 1. We'd either put it further out on the beach or the opposite direction for when people are coming off to track their speed as well. We'll be purchasing a new ATV to replace old vehicles in the fleet. We will start the beginning phase of the coastal resiliency parking lot relocation project next fall. We'll be removing vegetation in the upper lot to widen pedestrian pathways. We've been slowly doing this in areas that it's built up over time. We'll be updating seasonal staff training manuals and protocols, continuing to develop the jet ski training to support safe use in rescue situations, and continuing to improve and develop training for both seasonal and full-time staff. And we will also be continuing to reevaluate to develop new safety solutions as time goes on. I think that is it.
Good job.
Thank you.
I've been on the board for a number of years now. That was the best safety presentation.
Very good.
I think.
That was really good.
Really nice job, you guys. See the improvement every year, which is great. And you should be really proud of the record you have out there. You guys have any, I have one question, but you guys have questions? Bill?
One question, can you tell us what, as far as the ATVs and the UTVs, what type of training that the staff receive on the operation of those vehicles?
So we in-house do all of our safety training for the UTVs and ATVs and how to drive them. We kind of cater it depending on the specific two staff and their strong suits. So we don't let them go out and just take a vehicle. We do ride-alongs with them and show them the proper speed, use, and how to engage, stopping and engaging the public when they're using them. But we do that all in-house.
We're not using any sort of there are a couple of off-road vehicle organizations that run specific trainings. We're not doing any certification through those.
Not at this time, no.
Just do you need a motorcycle license to ride an ATV, or is it any license at all, or is it just
It's off-road.
as long as you're up?
Is there any helmet requirements?
Helmet requirements for all ATV use. Our UTVs, we don't require helmets. And yeah.
Do you have any needs?
Sorry.
Do you have any needs? Are there anything that you don't have that your team needs?
For specific to like safety solutions or vehicle use, I think we're really at a good place with a lot of our safety procedures and redeveloping some of them. And I think until after the relocation project, I think we're at a really good standpoint with what we have. And that would be the time where we maybe need to reevaluate. But I do think we'll just have to kind of, as we develop the project, we'll just have to grow with it.
But if you have some pull with the town council and they want to come up with $10,000 or $15,000, a drone would be incredible.
I was wondering about that, actually.
To a police drone if it was necessary? At this point?
Absolutely. And actually,
we used
the
it?
training that they were talking about, that was part of that training. We actually deployed drones from the police department as well as from the sheriff's department.
I was wondering what the sheriff's department involvement was.
They came with their mobile command center because they have access to be able to connect with all agencies on the Cape. So that was part of their use there. And they also brought down drones and drone operators along with an AV kit so we could actually watch on a larger screen what was happening live streamed.
Is that for search and rescue or what other?
Safety.
Well, the drones could be used for search and rescue for sure. When I was sort of making the tongue-in-cheek comment about the drone for Sandy Neck, I've been saying for a little bit now, it would be great for these floaties that go flying out to put a drone out there and actually put eyes onto that float to see if, do we need to deploy assets in the water? Do we need to call harbor master because there actually is somebody in that float? Or is it a float that is empty and we can get to it at harbor master's convenience, or if the jet ski is deployed? In addition to that, we can also let mariners know that that float is out there. We're aware that that float is out there and it is empty.
And the other thing that comes to mind, just
Safety.
on the fire department side, we respond several times a year to a kayak or some other boat which is adrift, and 99 times out of 100 they're because they weren't pulled up high enough at the high tide line, or on the pond or whatever, the rain came up. But just a reminder to people that own these types of watercraft to have an identification on that kayak or a dinghy even, that who it belongs to and how to reach them. The Coast Guard will has stickers that they'll put out, but that saves so many resources if you can identify that you've got a kayak and it came from Monroe's camp because Monroe's name is on it, and you can call and say, hey, did you lose any bodies? That kind of thing. So
Yeah, we hand those out at the gatehouse.
it sounds kind of tongue in cheek, but it is, there are hundreds of hours manpower that's, if you don't know, then you go look, and you've got a lot of resources that are out there. And if you got a resource that's out here and then it's needed over here, it's not available for over here. So, responsible use of watercraft and labeling watercraft is something that any patron or anyone that has a boat or a kayak around in the harbors could benefit from.
The jet ski, you do have a tricky situation because you got a pretty big tide. Have you talked to any other organizations that have similar tidal situations with jet skis to kind of benchmark how they're managing it? Yeah.
We've reached out to Horseneck Beach in off Cape. They have a similar setup, kind of they have a bigger undertow with riptides, but we haven't been able to discuss it further, but we've reached out to them.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you again. That was fantastic. I can see every year this, the data gets better, the focus gets better, and I think that's really a tribute to you guys. It's really such an important topic, so thank you very much. Okay, public comment. Anybody? We have a larger crowd than normal here. Anybody have anything they want to say? Okay, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.